I want to talk about our area of faith a little bit. How many of you can bench 300 pounds? How many of you have ever been able to bench 300 pounds? I used to set my goal when I worked out and was all pretty and all that stuff. My goal was to bench my own body weight. If I could bench my own body weight, I was pretty good at that. And then I would add to it as time went on. But you know what happened? Was that the muscles got weaker and the weight went up. And all of a sudden I couldn't bench my own body weight anymore. Now the only way that I knew that I couldn't bench my own body weight anymore was that somebody put it on a bar and I tried to push it and it set on my chest and I was going, help, help, help. I can't breathe. And so what does that prove? That proves that life fades, things go down, the outward man perishes. Did you know that? If you didn't know that, look in the mirror. It happens. But something I learned many, many years ago is while the outward man was perishing, what was inside of me was alive and well, and he was getting stronger every day. I was reading the Word, I was praying, I was coming to church, I was active in areas of ministry and doing things and going, and the guy inside of here was benching more while the guy out here was benching less. So here's something that I want to tell you. Faith that can't be tested can't be trusted. Let me say that again because I'm going to throw it at you a couple times. Faith that cannot be tested cannot be trusted. So what does that say? That means you're going to have a trial to your faith. Somewhere you're going to run into something that's beyond you. I remember the first time it happened to me because I'm that guy, Kathy, don't worry about it, I got it. It's okay, I'll get it, I'll get it. All of a sudden I run into something in life that I couldn't get. So far beyond me, so far outreach, so far whatever else. And it's like, oh, what do I do? You pray. You talk to somebody that can. See, resiliency, I think it's a great quality to have. And I'm losing some of mine. How about you? I used to, in the workout days and the martial arts days and all that stuff, I'd stick a can of Coke on my son's head and I could jump and kick it off. So it's been just a few years ago, we were outside and I was holding a can of Coke. I said, here, stick this on your head. He says, no way, old man. No, ain't happening. You're not kicking me in my chest if I can get my foot that up. So resiliency, what is resiliency? It's the ability to be flexible, to snap back after adversity, to get back in it. And guess what? The older I get, the slower I heal. How about you? It doesn't bounce back like it used to. I thought about a rubber band when I started talking about resiliency and writing this stuff down. What happens to a rubber band if you just leave it lay out in the sun? You pull it and it just breaks. So it needs to be taken care of. It needs to be watched over. And a lot of times in our life, we're not taking care of the spiritual side of us, and we start losing our resiliency. And when we get hurt, we don't snap back like we used to. Now, I understand the outside person because I am that guy. I am that guy that can't do what he used to do. I mean, and that's not easy to admit a lot of times. But I realize that on the inside, I should be able to do more right now than I've ever done in my life. Because this guy here is being taken care of by his son. How do we develop resiliency? Well, adversity, hardship, suffering, they have a way of leaking into the human experience. If you've never had any of these things, I don't know, you're under 12 or delusional. I don't know what it is. Because we've all had them. I'm not standing up here, you know, the old saying was, well, you're preaching to the choir. Now, everybody here understands what I'm saying because you've dealt with something. You've been on your face before God dealing with something that was beyond you. You also already know what God has done. Now the problem is sometimes we have short-term memories and we start to forget what God's already done. Because if you keep in sight what God's already done, what He's about to do for you doesn't look so far off. It doesn't look so far off. Don't get surprised sometimes when life is painful, maybe a little hard. It's one of your sources to resiliency. We used to sit down, oh, you guys will love this. Put your heels on a wall, face a wall, put your heels on a wall, and keep scooting up and see if you can get your belly against the wall. I had been practicing that for years before I could ever do it. And then if I didn't exercise for a week or two, I was right back where I started, and I had to start scooting up again. There was a young lady that came to class, and she sat down, and I was explaining what to do, and she just scooted all the way up, and she said, "What now?" And everybody in class looked around and said, "We hate you." So to some people, adversity seems to be so easy, they blow right through it. To some people, you struggle, and you have to work at it. And it seems like you finally got it, and then a little while goes by, you got to do it again, and it's not as easy the second time. You see, our faith in Jesus is going to be tested, and it's going to be tested in the storms and trials of life. They come. That doesn't mean they come to destroy you. They come to make you strong. They come to put you in a place that when God needs you, He can call you. He can call you. And honestly, the harder it is, the tougher you're going to come out of it. Oh, seriously. I mean, right now, I'm a job, I walk around and tell other folks what to do. That's a good job. Now, I do it for a multiple level of reasons. Number one, they don't know what to do. And I don't know about you, I learn quicker when I put my hands on things. How about you? Not just somebody standing over me telling me, but let me do it. Let me put my hands on it. So I've had to learn to step back, that they can step up and begin to do what they need to do. That's a good thing. And then there's certain things I can't do. And I need somebody else to do. But I have the mind to do it. Uh-oh. I walked into nursing homes. I was a nursing home minister for years. And I walked into a nursing home and saw all these gray hairs. And all of a sudden it dawned on me as a young man, I wonder what we're losing every day as they're passing. I wonder what instructions that they have, the knowledge that they have that I don't possess. And when they leave this life, we've lost that. So what do we need to do? We need to learn from those that have gone on before us how to be a little stronger, how to stand up, be a little tougher, how to look it in the face and say, "Not today, Satan. You're not playing in my life. You think you're bringing that stuff here? All you're doing is picking a fight and you're going to lose." Oh, seriously, the devil ever trying to get in your head? Oh, yeah. He used to love to tell me about my past because it was ugly, and there's things I've done that I've never told anybody. So when I die, you don't know. But now the thing of it is, as he's trying to pick in my brain, you know what I found out? When he would tell me about my past, I'd tell him about his future. He'll shut up and go away. Now in Matthew chapter 14, verse 13, Jesus learns about the execution of his cousin, John the Baptist. He goes to a desert place to be by himself. He wants to reflect. He wants to pray. He wants to talk to the Father. Anybody in here relish every now and again that alone time? What happens sometimes when you really need the alone time? Mom. Go ask your father. Dad said to come and see you. So sometimes we don't get it. So Jesus goes away. He wants some alone time. He wants to pray. And what happens? Every time anybody hears Jesus is there, here comes the folks. So now he's going to take a happy meal and feed 5,000 people. He's going to teach them some really good things. He's going to impart to them the word. He's not going to leave them. And he would really rather have been left alone. I don't think we get that part of Jesus. At this point in his life, he really needed that quiet, that solitude. But life dictates. I'm sure every one of you that ever had a job woke up every morning and said, hooray, I get to go to work. Well, if you had that job, God bless you. Thank you. You know, you're one of the few. So what do? We do things sometimes that we don't really want to do. So Jesus moves from solitude to a full day of the multitude. At the end of the day, he's ready for some solitude and some alone time with the one who sent him. So we're going to start in Matthew 14, verses 22. And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into the ship and to go before him unto the other side while he sent the multitude away. When he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into the mountain apart to pray. When the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. In the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went into them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were troubled, saying, It is a spirit. And they cried out for fear. But straightway Jesus spake unto them, saying, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And Peter answered him and said, Lord, if it be thou, bid me thou come unto thee on the water. And he said, Come. When Peter was come down out of the ship, he walked on the water to go to Jesus. But when he saw the wind boisterous, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, saying, Lord, save me. And immediately Jesus stretched forth his hand, and he caught him, and he said unto him, Thou of little faith, wherefore didst thou doubt? And they were coming to the ship, the wind ceased. Then they that were in the ship came and worshipped him, saying, Of a truth, thou art the Son of God. So why is this so significant? It's significant because this is the third boat experience that they had had with Jesus. Luke chapter 5. Bunch of fish. Matthew chapter 8. Big storm. Now he comes walking on the water. Something I want us to see here. The first thing with the fish. Where was the boat? It was right off the coast. It was right there where you could see it. Beautiful day. Nice easy breeze, sun shining. And because of the voice of the master, they done what he said. They got a great draught of fish. Second one I mentioned, Jesus is in the boat, and they're out of sight of land, and it gets ugly. Why are you sleeping? Don't you know we're all about to die? And the third one took place the fourth watch, somewhere between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. Jesus isn't even in the boat. Now think about that. We got guys here that we have to train to do the ministry of Jesus Christ. And understand that's what the church was placed here for. But we got 12 guys that are supposed to do the ministry of Jesus Christ. When he is gone, that he's going to have to train. So how's he training? The first time we're going to have a boat, you're going to be right here in calm water where I can see you. You're close enough that you can hear my voice. And I want to show you who I am. And it was a fairly easy thing if you just obey. What was the hardest part in every bit of that miracle? It was in them obeying Jesus' voice. That was the hard part. Jesus, don't you understand that you're a carpenter and we're fishermen and we know how to fish? Don't you think any of them thought that? How's a guy with a hammer and nails going to tell me what to do? The hard part was just doing it. And they did, and there's a great miracle. Now the next one is They didn't recognize him for exactly who he was, because he's asleep in the boat, and that should have been enough for them. But they didn't recognize who he was. They didn't get the fact that he is the very Son of God. Wake him up. Doesn't he know we're all about to die? Now the scary part is he stands up and says something, and waves quit, wind quit. Scared him to death. What manner of man are we hanging out with that when he speaks to the wind, it quits blowing? Lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, he's not even in the boat. Now, it doesn't tell you about their conversation in the boat. I wonder how that went. At least the last time he was here. And read it. He told them, get in the boat and go across and I'll meet you. He sent them there. The hardest part I think we have sometimes as Christians is to realize when we're going through hard stuff in our life that you are where he sent you. And we don't want to, I can't blame God for the bad stuff in my life. He's putting calluses on your feet so you can walk a little farther. I don't know about you guys. We had 3 ways when I was growing up. You had church shoes. Did you get in trouble if you wore your church shoes out to play? Oh man, that did not go well. And then you had your play shoes. Then you had your summertime shoes. That was bare feet. I think about running across gravel driveways, and that doesn't even go into my psyche anymore. I'm like, what kind of nut was that? Run across a gravel driveway and never flinch. Well, the fact that, I only weigh 12 pounds didn't hurt none. But the idea here, you sit down and you think about it. The disciples are weary, and each lesson takes them a little farther out. And pretty soon they realize that they are just fine just with the Master's voice. He don't even have to be in the boat. Now, I've heard, I don't know how many preachers beat up on poor Peter about he got out there and sank. I didn't see anybody else in that story getting out of the boat. And realized for a short period of time, he too walked on water. You ever meet anybody ever walk on water? I got a few that thought they could, but we'll leave it at that. Walking on water. The Lord's purpose was to encourage the disciples to trust him whether or not he was in the boat. Listen to that. He had to teach them to trust him. He told them to go. We got to learn to trust him whether or not he's in the boat. Now here he comes, walking on the water. We were kids, we used to have a song. Then came Jesus walking on the water. Well, it sounds like a cute little ditty, doesn't it? It was more powerful than you know. Understand, we have forces all around us. Centrifugal, centripetal, gravitational. We got forces everywhere, thermals. We got all kinds of stuff going on. And we're dealing with a guy it doesn't matter to. Mass displacement. That's the ability to take a ship made out of steel that weighs hundreds of thousands of tons and make it float. But it has to be spread out. We got all the math figured out. We're going to tell you how you got to do it and when you got to do it. And Jesus walking in his bare feet and standing on the water. He is breaking all kinds of laws. This is the God that we serve. We get so bound up in our heads with the physical things of what we see around us and not being able to realize it just beyond our vision. He can hear our voice and we can hear his voice. Oh, he may not be there. He may not be in the boat, but he's there. He's always there. Things to remember in a storm. Jesus brought me here. And he shall not fail me. Jesus sent him out ahead. Jesus brought me here. If I am a Christian and I'm following what God would have for me in my life, I have to realize that no matter where I am, no matter what's going on around me, Jesus brought me here. Make sure it's not you that brought you there. But if you're following what He has planned for your life, no matter where it is, how hard it is, or what happens to me, Jesus brought me here. Maybe I need another callus. He brought me here. He sees my circumstances. He knows that I'm bobbing around out here in a boat. I remember many years ago, when even going all the circumstances, I was praying and I said a simple statement. Father, I feel like I'm in the dark. I don't know which way to go. And I'm reading the book of Daniel, and all of a sudden I found out that He was the God in the darkness. And I went, whoa. Guess what? Just because you feel like you're in the dark doesn't mean He doesn't know where He's going. So how do you get through the dark? Follow the voice. Oh, seriously, I don't know about you guys. You ever been somewhere where it's a little scary? All of a sudden you can hear every thump, every creak, the building settling, every ooh, ooh. Now, if a voice speaks out of the darkness, what's the difference in it? To make you either afraid or calm. Do you recognize the voice? Now, I hear something speaking out here, and I don't know who it is. I'm prepared. We're getting ready to go to war, folks. I'm scared the way it is, and I don't recognize that voice. So, man, I'm going to get ready. Oh, all I have to do is recognize the voice. Oh, it's you. It's you. Everything gets calm. Everything gets quiet. Your heart, your rate goes down. You begin to breathe easier. Everything, because I know that voice. We have to understand we better keep in constant contact with Him so that when He speaks, we know the voice. And in the darkness, the sound of a recognizable voice will calm you down right now. It will ease you when it just makes it that way it's supposed to be. The next thing I want us to realize is that Jesus is interceding for me. The scripture in the book of Hebrews a couple of times calls Him the intercessor. What is it for somebody to intercede for you? How many of you have ever been in court? Raise your hands. And if you've ever been in court, the old saying is, there's people in there, I'll represent myself. You know what a judge will tell you? Those that represent themselves have a fool for a client. That's what they will tell you. Why? Because you don't know the law well enough, unless you've been to law school, to know what to say, where to go, how to lean, what to do. So you get somebody that can. Jesus is my advocate. He is my lawyer. And He stands between me and my failures and a most holy God. And He intercedes for me. Well, I'm not perfect. I know I caught some of you off guard. You're completely in shock. And not being perfect, there's days I need an intercessor. I need somebody to speak for me. And He's my intercessor. He's the one that looks out for me. Hebrews 7:25. Wherefore He is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by Him, seeing He ever liveth to make intercession for us. That's what He does. So not knowing Jesus, honestly, I don't know how the world does it. I see what the world does and the ugliness and everything that's out there. Like I say, I'm not a preacher that buries his head in the sand. I know what's going on. I don't know how they make it day to day without Jesus. I really don't. How do they get up every morning without hope? And put one foot in front of another. One of the highest rates of suicide in our nation is 14 to 24. What would drive somebody at such an age? That's the height of life. But yet they don't see any future. They don't see anything ahead because they're not following Him who owns the future. And if we see that, then we need to speak. We need to say. We need to do something to help them along. So Jesus intercedes for me. How many of you pray one for another? See, this is all scriptural stuff. Pray ye one for another. He's talking to the church proper, not Wayland Community Church, to all of us. Pray ye one for another. Why? Because some days you may be going through a struggle. You may be having a fight in your life. You may be having a hard time getting one foot in front of the other. You may have that thing going on in your head. Why am I even here? Because God brought you here. He brought you here for a purpose. But see, we lose track of the purpose part. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? So we need to pray one for another. I've said it before. I was going up the steps on my job, and I'm working in a powerhouse. And I was walking along, and the Spirit of the Lord just began to settle upon me. And I could feel strength, and I could catch my breath, and I didn't tell anybody I was going through anything or anything else. You know what I recognized? Somebody was praying for me. I don't even know who it was. You know what I said? I said, Heavenly Father, don't know who they are. Bless them. Bless them. Give them strength and courage. Thank them for doing it. God was moving on my behalf. And I hadn't even prayed about me, so somebody else was doing it. So we pray one for another. I keep a list of folks when I pray. You know how many times I've gone down through there and all of a sudden somebody's name, and I'm praying for everybody, don't misunderstand, somebody's name will sort of pop out and I say, Lord, don't know what's going on in their life. Take some time right now to be good to them, to watch over them, to help strengthen them. And it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. So we have to hear the voice, and we have to recognize the voice. It's something that we have to do. What's the next thing? When we start going through all of this stuff, you're going to grow in your faith, as long as you don't quit. Honestly, I hate for you guys to... Anybody here ever been in a fight? I had a guy years ago come and tell me, he said, I want you to teach me how to fight. I looked at him, I mean, he's a grown man. Well, you make a fist and go like that. He said, no, really. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've never been in a fight in my life. And he was a full grown. I said, you've gotten this far into life and never fought with anybody. He said, no. I said, you're a better man than I am. Well, you asked me for instruction for it. I need to learn to be like you. And he just got quiet. And I'm serious. If you've gone through your whole life and never fought with anybody, you're a good man. Keep it up. Teach the rest of us how to do it. Been through my stuff in my life. Got scars and chunks to prove it. But the idea is, when you get hit, what do we have a tendency to do? We hit back. Take a little kid that knows nothing. They're just learning how to walk. Put your finger on their head and push back a little bit. What do? They lean into it. Why? Inner ear. They're keeping their balance. They're pushing back. It's innate in us. It is part of who we are. And when it comes to the spiritual side of us, too many times we lay down and quit instead of fighting back. And I grab this book and I'll say, my God is more than able. Amen. And he who has come against me shall fail in his endeavors, because my God is more than able. See, I'm smart enough not to stand up and say, look what Tom done, because I've been pushed over before. I won a few fights in my life, not because I was the best or because I was the strongest, because I was the hardest head. I refused to quit. I kept getting back up. And sometimes in our life, that's all we need, is just to get up one more time. The Master says we can do it, that means you can do it. He will not lie to you, and he'll not lead you in a place to get you destroyed. That's not what you're in this for. But you're in this to look at somebody else that's going through something that's rather ugly and say, guess what? Been through ugly myself, and God will see you through. He shall not fail you. I had a boy who's 13 years old, taller than me. Look at me through a set of bars many years ago at a juvenile justice center. And he said, you're a preacher. What do you know about this? And I said, one of the first times I ever really considered God in my life, I was on your side of the bars. How's that? And he just got real quiet. Really? Yeah, really. Wasn't born this way. This is what God can do, and he can do the same for you. And he had nothing else to say back. Just sort of looked at me like, dude, that's a hardcore preacher. Look at that guy. They think because that you're a Christian that you're a pushover, that you're going to be easy to walk on to this and that and the other. I am more than a conqueror through him that loves me. How's that? What is a conqueror? That's somebody who's been in a fight. You can't conquer anything you haven't fought. And every one of us has got a fight in our life. I'm not talking about who you married. I'm not getting off that. Every one of us has got a fight in our life. So what is it to step out of the boat? That's getting out of the comfortable. That's getting out of the comfortable. That's getting out of where we feel we fit, or where we want to be, or how we think life ought to be. That's the getting out of the boat part. Now, when Peter got out of the boat, he didn't succeed 100%. Now, he did succeed. He walked on the water. You imagine hanging out with a guy that could look at you and say, I walked on water. And I'm sure a bunch of people said, yeah, but I was there when you sank too. What did the Lord do? Did the Lord let him sink? Chew on this part of the story just a minute. What did Jesus do?
Reached out.
Now, why did he reach out? Listen real close. Peter had enough sense to say, help me. Oh, I'm all for being Mr. Tough Guy. I'm all for standing your ground. I'm all for being all that macho, goofy stuff that we talk about. I'm all for all of that. There is a place in your life that you're going to get, and I don't care how tough you think you are, where you're going to have to look him in the face and say, help me. Help me. I talk about guys all the time. Let me tell you something. Some of the toughest people I ever met in my life are ladies. Oh, seriously, I think I use it as a joke, but it's not a joke. I said if it was up to men having babies, there would be no population explosion. It just wouldn't happen. It's not. You could lie to me once after that, you're on your own.
Amen.
You're on your own. But now the idea is, think about it. No matter who you are, what your background is, how tough we think we are, we're going to walk into something that we're going to have to say. Not going to want to say. If you want out of it, you're going to have to say, Father, help me. Wisest thing Peter could have done. Understand the storm's still raging. The waves are still washing. And he's beginning to sink. Help me. So what did Jesus do? Okay. Now, explanation. Why did he fail? Oh, you of little faith. He taught him. He didn't leave him that way. He taught him. Teaching, I mean, honestly, ask people what the greatest thing is they think Jesus ever done. Most people will point to the cross. And they will say, giving his life for our sins. And yes, that's right up there at the top. Don't misunderstand me. But then a lot of people are going to talk about the miracles. Feeding 5,000 people with a happy meal. Turning water into wine. Healing the sick, raising the dead. They're going to look at all that stuff. One of the greatest things Jesus ever done for any of us was to teach us how to be like him. One of the greatest things that he ever done was taught us how to be like him. He just wasn't him and then leave the rest of us go. Oh, he said scary things. Greater things than this shall you do because I go into my Father. Wow. He didn't say, well, it's okay, you know, Teresa, you'll get by, you'll barely make it, but it'll be all right. Greater things than this shall you do because I go into my Father. Now, what's he doing with his Father? He's making intercession for us. He's up there talking about me. Now, if God's talking about you, I wonder what kind of language that he's using. Oh. Father, he's not real bright yet, please. Just... I thought he had this figured out, but he don't. Seriously, I've learned to change my prayer life so much in walking with the Lord. And so many times I've been in ugly circumstances, and I pray, just, Lord, get me out of here. Open a door. There's got to be a way. Get me out of here. And I've learned Oh, you need to learn. Father, let me learn what I need to know while I'm here, and never let me cross this way again. Let me not forget the lessons that I know. I don't pray, Lord, get me out of here. Father, there's a reason that I'm here. You brought me here. Teach me what I need to know. Then let it go. Then let it go. I don't want to do this again. Ever take a kid by the hand over and over? I told you, and over and over. You know what's really exciting is the day you come home or go to school or whatever else it is that you do. You go in, and the child that you have led and done and instructed for so long, all of a sudden they're doing it, and you didn't say a word. All of a sudden, it's like it snapped in. All of a sudden, it began to work. And you actually stand back and go, they got it? They got it? And that's the exciting part about teaching, about showing. And I'm sure somewhere along the way, every now and again, Jesus would look at his disciples. Now, he did say things like this to them also. I've been with you how long? And you know what? You've sat at my feet for 3 years, and you what? So now, he wasn't the easiest teacher, but he got it taught. He had 3 years to change the world. So many of us have a tendency to still cower in the boat and criticize Peter. Somebody else that's going to try something, that's going to try to walk on the water. They're going to try to do something that is beyond themselves. And if you're that person that's getting out of the boat, don't think that the other 11 are always going to cheer for you. The only one that cheered for him was Jesus. Who else did he have to please? But yet in our hearts and minds, guess what? I want people to like me. It was disturbing to me to find out that there's people in this world that just don't like me. I'll never preach again. What can I tell you? I would love for everybody in the world to love me, but you know what I found out? If everybody likes you, you're lying to somebody. Because not everybody wants to be a Christian. Not everybody's going to want to walk after the things of God. Not everybody's going to want to do it the right way. Well, I've hugged a few people and I said, well, you have a right. And one guy says, I have a right to what? I said, you have a right to be wrong. It's okay. Yeah, he didn't laugh like that at all. Often it's easier to criticize than it is to get out of the boat. It's easier to stand back and say, this should be done, that should be done, instead of getting out and doing it. Now, not everybody's called to get out of the boat. Don't misunderstand me. If you're called to be a boat guy, be a boat guy. If you're called to walk on water, you've got no business in the boat. You've got no business in the boat. And let me tell you something. That doesn't make you any better than the folks that stay in the boat. It makes you different. Because somebody's got to walk on water. I've prayed many times in my life about direction. Probably one of the more deep prayers I've ever prayed. Father, I need to go in the direction you would have for me to go, and I don't know where to go. Now, Paul made it real simple. He started to go to one place on a missionary journey, and in the middle of the night, the Lord spoke to him and said no. And he rolls over and he decides to go somewhere else, and the Lord said no. And in the middle of the night, he got a vision of a man's face that said, come to Macedonia and help us. He got direction. But you have to understand, if you read the whole story, he was going somewhere. He was not just going to sit. All he needed was direction. And direction is a very important thing, because that whole Macedonian story doesn't happen if he doesn't go where he's supposed to go. Now, where do most of us want to go? The path of least resistance. You know where water flows? The path of least resistance. Where does electricity go? The path of least resistance. Everything has a tendency in nature to go the direction that is the easiest. And God doesn't see it that way when it comes to his children. Oh, I've gone places that were so easy, so smooth, worked perfect. And I've gone to places that, seriously, it's like he was in a wrestling match every day. And if God sent me there, wrestle I will. I'll be whatever God would have for me to be to the best of my ability. Because I'm sure if he brought me there, he'll see me through it. He'll see me through it. How easy is it to take heart and not be afraid? Oh, let's chew it. Come on. This is, I love them old cowboy movies. They're going to cut the bullet out of the guy. He's hurt. What are they going to do? Poor little fellow, we're so sorry. God, they stick the stupid knife in the fire. And they give him a rein and say, here, bite down on this. Well, this morning's message, you're in a cowboy film. And the knife's in the fire, bite down on this because we're going to cut it out. What is this whole message about? This is about the church going forward, about the church growing. And I'm just not talking about this place. If we really believe that Jesus is coming, what are we doing to prepare for it? And are we willing to walk on water? Oh, kids will put it on you. I taught a lesson in a children's class many years ago on the parting of the Red Sea. A little boy ran up to me and he's pulling on my leg. He said, Tom, I said, yeah. He says, do you really believe that? I said, yeah. He said, well, the river's back here. Let's go do it. Huh? So what do? You start explaining your way out of it, right? Well, if Pharaoh's army was coming and God really, I believe that God would still do, yeah, but I want to do it now. I want to see it. Kids don't cut you any slack. But the fact of the matter is, do we really believe that God done it? And see, that's God's ability part. Here's the part, do you believe he would do it for you? I don't know which would be cooler, watching the water part and walking across on the bottom or just walking on top of it. But understand, God can do it however he wants to do it. This morning the question is, are you willing to walk on water? Ooh, that's a statement. When I wrote some of this stuff down, I had to sit back myself and think, I'm going to ask these people if they're willing to walk on water. Guess what? You have to realize that when I write messages like this, I'm the first guy that's got to eat this thing. I have to take this and assimilate this into my life. And I have to say, Reverend Holbrook, out of everything that you know, out of all of your years with walking with God, would you get out of the boat? Would you walk on water? That's a heck of a statement. And the only person that can answer that in your life is you. And it's easy to lie to yourself. It's easy to make more of ourselves than we are. But being real with ourselves, if he was standing out here, could I get out of the boat? Man, that's a statement. And if you think that you're in the majority, you will not be. There's 11 guys back here. One got out. You're not going to be in the majority, and not everybody's going to be happy with you. But when you get into trouble, when things get ugly, Father, help me. Take you by the hand. I'll get you back on top of the water. Guess what? Peter walked back to the boat on the water. Why? Because he had the master's hand. Where was the failure? Got his eyes off the master and on the storm. I do it. I mean, I'm human. I see things happening in our nation and everything else, and I begin to look, and it'll affect your prayer life. Father, do you think we should this? Do you pray about this? Pray about this? Guess what? Get your eyes off the physical, begin to get it on the spiritual. Because guess what happens when this world starts getting squeezed real hard? People are going to look for an answer, and the answer they're going to find is Jesus. We're going to bring a lot of souls to the kingdom church. We just have to be ready for it. When this world starts really getting squeezed, when Medicare and Medicaid and Blue Cross and Blue Shield begin to fail, you need a healing, come to Jesus. When bank accounts begin to wither and all of a sudden our money isn't any good anymore, I'm talking to the guy that fed 5,000 people with a happy meal. And this stuff's easy to say when my wallet's full and my belly's full and I got a roof over my head and the heat's working. Am I going to be willing to get out of the boat in the middle of the storm? So church, this is a message for every man, woman, and child everywhere. The more you're going through right now, the tougher you're going to be. Don't quit. Don't ever give up. You are a winner as long as you are fighting. Why? Because he said so. Listen to one old pastor. He was asked, do you think God's really this? Do you think God's really that? And the old man said, well, I started in the beginning of the book, and I found out he created things and he was in control. Then I read the end of the book, and I found out that we win. So somewhere in the middle, he never did lose. This is the God that we serve. And are we willing to stand on it? Focusing on Jesus during the storm, exercising our faith, praying for direction, taking heart, not being afraid, and being persevered in the storm. This is a message to every Christian that's ever walked the face of the earth, because every one of us has dealt with something. You may have more money than you'll ever spend in your life. You may have this, you may have that. Something is coming your way that you cannot handle. And you're going to say, Father, help me. And know that he will. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for your word this morning. I thank you that I don't have to cower in fear in the boat. But Lord, I can stand right here next to you. You are very God, and you always watch over me. Lord, I pray that you give me strength, show me mercy. Uphold me with your right hand, that I too may enter that kingdom unashamed and unafraid. In Jesus' precious name we do pray. Amen.